Bonjour, it's Tanisha and welcome back to another painting video. And as you can see by the title, today we are finally back with another Studio Ghibli tutorial. So grab a snack or your painting supplies and let's get started. Alright, so for today's video, I wanted to do a tutorial on Studio Ghibli mountains, as I've done several paintings that included this type of mountains, and I know that a lot of you guys have requested it in the past, so here we are. A lot of the mountain studies I'll be doing is actually from House Moving Castle, and I'll be adding a reference pic below as well. And yes, I will also be making it more real-time, that way you guys can follow along. In terms of art supplies, you'll just need your basic colors, a palette, water of course, a napkin or cloth, and some paintbrushes. And as for paintbrushes, I pull out 4 to use, but I just wanted to add some options for you guys, as I want to give a tutorial that you can easily follow without having to break your wallet to buy new art supplies. So hopefully you have a pointed brush, a square or rounded one, and we should be good to go. So as you can see here, I'm gonna have a square brush that will be used for blocking out colors or mixing them, and then I will have a medium pointed brush to add some sort of details, and also a smaller pointed brush that's to add even more details. And I also added a rounded brush just in case you don't have a square brush, but those can be used interchangeably, so we'll try them both. And finally, I have a palette knife, and that's optional as well. It's just to pick out the paint and put it on the palette, that way I'm not dirtying my colors, so you don't really need it. And we will be using the Gouache set for this tutorial, and do not worry about having the same set or same type of colors, because I will teach you how to create your own colors even if you have a limited palette color combination. One of my favorite mountain painting is this one, so stay tuned for the next spot as I'll teach you how to paint these type of mountains. Alright, just like last time, before we get started with painting mountains, we gotta touch on the basics real quick, and it's color theory. Once you know more about this, it becomes really helpful to mix different type of colors, tints and shades. And if you followed my previous tutorial, you know that I like making my green sometimes. So again, to make a green, you just have to use some yellow and then blue, and then depending on how much blue and yellow you make, you can make a version of green. So here, I first started by making equal amount of blue and yellow, and then in the second option, I'm actually using yellow, but now with a darker blue to now create a darker green, more on the blue side. And next up, I've showed you how to make your basic green, but now I want to show you how to make a green more on the brown side, because you can have different type of greens and sometimes you do have some ochre color in there. So again, I'm having some yellow and the blue, and I'm also adding some ochre color, or you can also add brown, but we'll try ochre. I don't know why I'm struggling to say this word. Ochre, whatever you see on the screen. So mix those 3 colors, depending on how much you want to mix it, then you can have a slightly different hue of green. And for the next color mixture, I wanted to add this in here because I don't want to only show you how to make green. I want to show you how you can make different variant of shades and lighter colors. And you just have to take brown and dark blue to be able to get a darker, not completely black, but it's a good color to add shade on mountains. So mix blue and brown to get nice shaded colors. And following the similar logic there is, if I use yellow and blue, I'll get my green. And now if I want to darken my green, I could use black, but I'm going to start out by using brown first. And then if I want to make it even darker later, I'll add black. So I'm just here showing the different variant of shaded colors you can get. So mixing these 3 colors in different amounts, you can create a lot of variety of colors. And for this next one, I'm finally using some black with the blue, and as you can see, I'm not using straight black to create shadow colors. I want to mix it with a little bit of blue because any shade you can kind of sometimes see some purple in it or some blue. So I'm starting out with blue, and if you do want to create purple, you can add a little bit of red in it to have that little variant in the color. So I'm hoping by leaving the colors on top, you guys can remember what colors I've used to create the final result. So for the next one, I'm mixing white now with some yellow to create the lightest shade that I could create on a green, for example. So again, now we're going to the lighter side and mixing white with a lot of other colors to create on the other spectrum of those colors variant. And again, using the similar logic, when mixing yellow and blue, you'll get green. And now if you want to make it lighter, you just add some more white in it. So I just want to showcase that in this paper as well. And for this next set of color mixture, you're probably gonna say, Danisha, what are you doing? This is the same color you just added before, because I know right before this I was using yellow and blue and white to create the same light green, but I wanted to add this to show you the difference when you add different amounts of a specific color. So earlier I kind of tried to mix them all equally, and here I'm trying to use a little bit more of a blue, and you'll see the difference on how the colors end up. So again, it's all about having fun with the colors. Just try it out, try playing around mixing different colors and see what comes to be, and try to decide which color you usually like. So have fun with the colors is what I want to see here. Alright, and for the next one, I want to mix some blue with the ochre and some white to create a different shade of lighter green. And I'm using ochre. I know it's kind of more on the brown side, but this ochre color has some yellow in it, and that's why it would give us a specific green. And it's a green more on the brown side, lighter brown side, and I think it'd definitely be helpful to have this type of green as well in your paintings. And for the next one, you can have some bush or tree or grass that's more shaded, and sometimes it looks more on the blue side and it's darker. So that's why I'm using the darker blue and mixing it with some yellow to create another variant of the green. And finally, I am using the two darkest colors on my palette right now, which is dark blue and black, to create the darker shadows that I could make. Of course, I could use black, but I want to add some blue to create some sort of hue to it. And yeah, I could explain and mix a lot more colors, but I think with this basic knowledge of mixing colors, you can definitely do it with red, blue, purple, and all that fun colors. But yeah, just go ahead and have fun with your colors before we get started. Okay, so now we're finally getting to the fun part, which is painting the mountains. And to get started, you can either use your square brush or a rounded brush. It's basically to mix colors and kind of block out the initial layer. And to get started, I have the picture down below, so I will follow the shape roughly, and it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just taking what we see and putting in our paper. So again, I'm creating my own green, which is yellow and blue, and I'm trying to create an equal amount of the mixture and just blocking out the shape. So as you can see with the rounded brush, I'm just adding the basic shape of it. You can totally do that with a square brush, and yeah, just fill it in with that basic color first. And now that I have kind of like my medium color set up, I will use my pointed brush to start adding some details. And again, when you're adding lighter colors, don't forget to clean your brushes in between, just so that way you're not making your color becoming too muddy. But here I'm not too worried about it because I'm gonna make a darker color right now. And as you can see, I'm picking up some dark blue, picking up some of the yellow, and start mixing the colors. And I might go in and add brown or black depending on how I want it. But here I'm just starting out with the dark blue and the yellow and try to just block out the initial shadow, and I could always go darker later. And so in terms of adding the shadows, the best way I could explain it is using your pointed brush and just kind of paint out veins. Don't try to be too perfect, kind of let your paintbrush flow like I'm showing on the screen. And I have it in real time so you guys can know the speed I'm working with, and also just having fun. So look into the picture, look where the shadow is falling, and if you think about it, if you see the lighter part, the sunlight is hitting from the right angle. So everything on the left would be kind of in the shadow. But you're not going to block out the whole section on the left as dark. You're going to leave some streaks to be like out there in the sun, as you can see in the video, and just kind of make those vein. That is the best way I could explain it. You can definitely understand it through the visual, but it's kind of like painting upside down veins or upside down branches and just kind of opening it in the bottom. So let me know if that made sense, but I definitely think it looks kind of like vein, and then you just kind of loosely bring it down in the bottom. So lots of repetition there, but I'm hoping I'm able to explain a little bit how it happens, because I've always struggled with painting mountains. It took me definitely a lot of trial and errors to get this, so I'm hoping me showing you guys how slow it can be sometime and how I kind of interpret it, that you guys can get started and learn it easily. So now that I blocked out my initial main shadows, I do see from the picture there's some variant of green. I see some green that's more on the yellow side, so I'm using some of the yellow and adding it kind of on the edges of the shadow, just blending that out here and there as I see in the picture. And make sure that you're not blending it out too much. We're just kind of smoothing some of the edges with the yellow just to add this dimension that I'm seeing in the picture, and then we'll go back and keep layering shadows and light. So watch what I'm doing with my hands and just blend out some of the edges, and we'll move on to the next step. So here what I'm doing is, the picture, I don't really just see one type of green for the basic layer and then one shadow color. There's a lot more green going on. So I'm going back using some of the yellow, mixing it with the green that I have and just kind of adding it as a third layer. So I'm not quite blending the shadows yet, but it's kind of going to be my middle ground, and I'm just adding some of the green back. And again, later on we'll bring out the lighter colors again on top. I'm just creating different variants of green so it doesn't look too flat. We're trying to create dimension here. And right now I am seeing that some part of the green that I have is more on the bluer side, kind of like on top of the mountain. So I'm going in and using some of the blue, mixing it with my green and kind of following that same movement with my hand, which is those inverted vein or inverted branches, and just kind of blending it slowly but not too much. Just loosely follow the hand movement to bring it down, and that's why I'm layering those different hues on top of the green. When now I'm satisfied with the basic colors that I have blocked out and some of the blending, I do want to go back and kind of create more of the shadows, because there is one more layer of the shadows. And again, like I explained earlier, you can use the black, but definitely mix it with some brown or some darker blue to create that addition of variant in the shadow, because if you look into the picture, it's not straight black in it. So mix up some of your blues. You can also add some yellow in it as well. So I'm kind of going by the picture and mixing a lot of the blue because it's a shadow on the bluer side. And we will start with a pointed brush, that's the smaller pointed brush, to add a little bit more details this time, because we went from blocking out the colors with the big paintbrush to medium paintbrush to add the first layer of detail, and now we're adding even more details. So our paintbrush just kind of gets smaller and smaller as we want to add more details. Again, we are following the same hand motion, which is making those inverted vein, and you can see that I'm doing it very loosely. My hand kind of goes back and forth because we don't need to make it perfect. It's nature. It doesn't have to be a straight line going through. So my hand just kind of goes back and forth, and I try to follow some of the lines that I created, but also create the other shadows. And I am not covering the initial shadow that I was doing. I'm adding a little bit more on top. So in the bottom, the part that doesn't see as much sun, it's in the darkest shadow, so it'll be in the shade, so that's why I'm adding those darker pieces. And again, we don't have just one type of shadow color. It always varies as you look at it from different angle or different parts of the mountain. So as you can see, I am using some white now to add it to this color to lighten the shadow a little bit as I go up. So the more up I'm going, that means that part of the mountain is seeing more light. So it's lightly lighter. So I'm going in with that same motion, just bringing it up more and blending it slightly, but just following that shape as I go. And make sure that, well, now that you have your pointer brushes, you should be able to grab tinier detail because we don't want to fully cover what we had created in the background. We just want to make some of the background show, but now add a little bit more details on top. And to be honest here, I could technically be done with adding the shadows and move on to the lighter part, which is adding the snow caps and everything. But It's a Denisha class. What do you think, guys? I do have to add some details sometimes, and I kind of get lost in the colors and I want to add a little bit more. So once you reach here, you can definitely stop and move on to adding the snow. But I was seeing more green with the same concept that we used earlier. Some places I was seeing green on the blue side, some places I was seeing green on the yellow side. So I was just slightly going in with my smaller brushes and adding those details here and there, which is following the same veiny look motion, and once I feel satisfied with it, I'll finally move on to the snow part. And I definitely wanted to include this section because I wanted to show you guys, as an artist, sometimes you do end up following some of your intuition or you feel like you need more colors. So don't stop yourself from not adding another color if you feel like it needs to be there. I'm here to guide you through the basics, and you can always take it a step forward. Take what you need from what I'm teaching you and create your own masterpiece. And finally, I am done with adding the shadows. And before you go in and start adding your white, please go change your water. We don't need that white to get muddy. So that's the biggest trick. If you want to make your white pop out, change out your water, clean your brushes, and make sure you're mixing your white separately. I'm trying not to mix it as much closer to my green, but with experience, I know how to place my colors. But you can definitely move your white to a different part of your palette and start adding the colors. And again, if you remember, I was talking about the white being, and again, if you remember, I was talking about the sunlight coming from the right angle. So now we are putting white on the right side of the mountain. So that's all that you gotta think. You basically have a base layer, you add some shadows on the left, you add some lights on the right side, and then it should create a nice dimensional kind of mountain. So it's basically that, if you think about it. It's just us being extra and adding more details and more colors, but hopefully you understand the main concept with what I'm going. And again, if we want to talk about if the sun is on top or in the bottom, just follow where the sunlight will hit, and that's where the lighter part will always end up being. So yeah, now I'm going in and adding the snow, and of course snow is kind of falls all around the mountain. So I'm starting out with white because we're gonna have white snow, but the snow that will be in the darker side later, I will show you how to create a shaded snow. I have said snow a lot of time. I twisted my tongue. I cut it out definitely, but yes, I will stop and let you watch how I'm doing it with my hand. And again, for this part, I don't have a better way of explaining other than this mountain looks like it had snow kind of falling along those veins that it had. So that's basically how the ridges and shape of the mountain is. So I'm basically looking at the picture and adding the white as I see it. And if you're using gouache, you see your white kind of blending with the colors. You can wait for your painting to dry and also clean your brushes in between and then add more of the white, because your brushes might be picking up the colors from the bottom and mixing it. So if you want the white to pop, definitely clean your brush in between. So that should definitely help. Alright, now that we're done with the snow that's being hit by the sunlight, we have to add the rest of the snow that's on the other side. And to do this white, we're actually going to use some blue and then mix that with white. Sometimes you can mix a little bit of red. Why do I say red? Is to create purple. But I see in this picture, the snow is kind of more on the blue side when it's shaded. And I did mix some green. That's to follow along the green mountain that I have. I feel like the snow was kind of peeking some green with it, but it's definitely more on the blue side. So take some of your blue, mix your white as you see I'm doing on the screen, and then continue adding it on the left side. And similarly, when I'm adding the shaded snow, I am not just putting big blocks of snow on the other side. I'm kind of following along some of the ridges and looking at the painting, of course, and just creating the other side of the snow. It looks like basically snow fallen into some of the cracks, so you definitely add it there. And yeah, just gonna create on the left side of each part of the ridges that you see. And finally, I am going back to use some of the yellow because in the picture I did see there was some kind of yellowish green popping it, so maybe it was getting high sun in hitting it. So I just wanted to go in and add some touches of yellow. You don't really have to do it, but I just want to add it to be extra. And that's the final painting. I really hope that you enjoy it. I have a lot more tutorial coming in. I could not fit everything into this video. It was gonna be 2 hours long and my laptop was hating me for editing this. So stay tuned for part 2 when I'm gonna teach you some other fun mountain. Thanks for watching and I'll see you very soon. Allez, bye!